Welcome to Stay Sparked. On this show, we explore how to stay inspired in the modern world through the most profound lessons from Burning Man, relationships, entrepreneurship, psychedelics, spirituality, travel, and more. On today's episode of Stay Sparked, we talk about grief and loss, our personal experiences, some of our personal perspectives, and the stages of grief.
We talked about the transitory nature of things, lessons from Burning Man,
and best practices and best processes to move through grief and learn how to become someone who doesn't get over grief, but learns how to carry grief with us.
Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Stay Sparked. We are three friends here to share conversations aimed to inspire and to light you up. Thank you so much for listening. If you've been enjoying these conversations, we appreciate you leaving us a rating, 5 stars, please, and a review on the Apple Podcasts, and check us out on Spotify as well. And please help us to spread the sparks. I am Janus.
And I'm Betsy.
And I'm Halcyon.
I am the founder and CEO of NuWorld Nutritionals, a nutritional supplement company geared that provides a number of mushroom-based products, all designed to help improve your state of mind.
And I am a holistic healthcare practitioner here to inspire and light you up through mind, body, spirit practices, and also the founder of the Power Affirmation Project, teaching life skills for sustainable happiness.
And I am the host of the Hug Nation YouTube channel and the creator of the Love More Fear Less t-shirt shop with lots of feel-good slogans to wear about your day.
Fantastic. So we always love starting these conversations with a bit of gratitude. So Halcyon, could you start us off? And what are you feeling grateful for in this moment?
Today I'm feeling grateful for a gratitude practice that we celebrated 3 years of doing daily gratitude circles in Zoom. Started at the beginning of the pandemic, and so twice a day I've been leading these circles, and we actually have 3 a day that are happening. And so we all got together in Zoom this weekend, and people shared stories and impacts of their life, and it was just such a affirming realization of how significant, a practice of gratitude can be. And in addition to that, one of our regulars, Aviv in Israel, she couldn't make it because she went into labor. So we have a little gratitude baby that was born to help us celebrate. So I'm super grateful for
Gratitude baby.
That. Yeah.
Woo!
So thankful.
Amazing.
Nice. That's great.
Beautiful. Well, I'll share my gratitude. I'll jump right in. I am grateful for a nature reset. I was able to take 3 days this weekend and go about an hour and a half outside of San Diego and be in Julian, which is the mountains. And I just soaked it up with, just the stillness of the mountains and that fresh air from all the trees. And I got to watch wild turkeys and I saw deer and just being under the stars. And it was so quiet. I'm so grateful for an opportunity to have that reset. It's kind of like, just turning your computer off or your phone off, and it just makes the system run so much better. It feels like coming back from that, I feel like I had a beautiful reset. So really grateful for that.
Nice. So my gratitude for this morning is, it's kind of speaking to our topic today, and that as far as feeling gratitude goes, sometimes gratitude isn't the easiest thing to suss out and to source. And we always, no matter our circumstances, we always have so much to feel grateful for, to be grateful for, even though if we might not be feeling it so much. So got a number of challenges going on with me right now, but there is gratitude still to be had. And that gratitude in this moment is for my body, my health. I'm feeling really good right now physically. I feel energized. I feel like, there's no, the older you get, there's always some aches and pains that tend to come along for the ride. And not feeling much of that these days. So I'm feeling like, yeah, I noticed it actually the other day. I was like, wow, my body feels really good. I'm feeling kind of energized and getting up easier. I'm sleeping much better. And yeah, I feel like I'm eating better. That's making a difference. So I'm making some positive changes, and it's reflecting in my body pretty quickly. So I'm feeling good, and feeling especially grateful for my physical health.
Bravo. That is
in this morning. So
often it takes an injury to remind us how to be grateful for feeling good. It takes some effort to be grateful for feeling good in the moment. So well done. Thanks for that reminder.
yeah,
Totally. And also the reminder that even when life is challenging, that we can come back to the body. It's like, oh, wow, I'm facing some deep challenges in life, but oh, wait, let me feel my body. Oh, I'm healthy. I feel good. Okay. I'm going to actually like amplify the focus on that. So that is beautiful, Janus. I'm so glad
Yeah.
you're feeling well and navigating life's challenges in the best way that you can.
yeah. It's, that's all we can do sometimes. Is just to do our best, which is always changing from day to day for sure. So, and on that note, our topic today is grief and loss, and how do we what is that for each of us? How do we deal with that? How do we process that? Because it's such a part of life. It's something that we all experience at some point, and pretty early on. So it's never really far from our life's experience. Like we can be like life is filled with ecstatic highs and some really like low depths and all sorts of waypoints in between. So yeah, I think that what is up for us today is to kind of discuss that and how that has been a part of our individual and collective journeys. So one thing I would like to well, first, pop quiz for you two. So, what is, if you're familiar with the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross model of the 5 stages of grief, what are those stages? You two.
Ooh, I cheated. I wrote them down on my hand.
On
Denial,
your hand.
anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Yeah. I feel like she nailed it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, and finding ourselves, and now these are not like in order, like they're just part of the process a lot of times. Like those are like how we remember them, but they're not, that's not how it particularly unfolds for us. Like we can find ourselves in each one of these moments at any point along the spectrum. So speaking of spectrum, there is, for me, I'm going to come at this from a slightly roundabout way. And that I feel when we're dealing with grief, it's important, first of all, and we all have our own process. So there's no right or wrong. There's nothing right or wrong that's going to, transpire in this conversation, but just our own individual perspectives and approaches. I feel for me that the approaching grief is, there's a spectrum of experience of things that you can feel grief about. On one end of the spectrum is, Trader Joe's discontinuing your favorite food item.
What?
Like that's a level of tragedy. No, like
I can't live without those corn crisps.
I can picture Betsy just dropping to her knees in the aisle. No. So, but that is like one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum would be, let's say, you're at your family reunion and a tornado comes by and sweeps all 300 members of your extended family away, and you're the only one left. And like, so something absurd like that, but super tragic. Anyway, that's the spectrum of like human tragedy. For me, I like to like pinpoint like where am I on that spectrum, just to make sure that the grief that I'm experiencing and feeling is appropriate to the situation. Because again, there's no right or wrong, but I had a conversation with a person I remember back in the day who was lamenting She was supposed to be head cheerleader in her senior year of high school, but she moved and so went to a new school in high school and wasn't the most popular girl in school anymore, so didn't get to be head cheerleader her senior year. I had this conversation with her when she was in her 40s, and she was still like processing this, and I was a little more correction, a lot more judgmental back then than I am now. But I remember just being just all I could do to just keep my face just like solid stoic and be like, it sounds really tough. It sounds really tough. So, but so for me, I like to make sure that what I'm feeling is appropriate for the situation.
Mm.
So,
That's a
I
really
love
then,
that, like a
yeah,
little chicken.
I
Oh.
think that's interesting, but I also think it's a really, I mean, the human experience is always relative, and like it can be super traumatic to have something that from the outside people don't understand, why it's so traumatic. And in fact, the kind of like to not get too off track, but like I'm figuring out, I used to have a story that I had no trauma because my life is so easy, but no, I had things that happened that affected me in a way that are still a part of my life. And so not making cheerleading could be a trigger, an event that does cause, a certain reaction that is irrational, and it does affect you in deep ways. So I'm gonna have some compassion for this poor cheerleader.
certainly.
But I think that, but to agree with your point, as we were preparing for this topic and I was thinking about it, I was trying to think about my experience of grief in my life. And for the most part, I've had a charmed life in the regards of what have I really lost? My parents are still alive. My brother's alive. I've never had a best friend pass, and so I've had elements of grief and loss, but I feel like they don't touch upon the tornado realm that you're talking about, or someone who loses a spouse before, unexpectedly. These are levels of grief that are hard for me, honestly, to even to speak to, in the same way that I couldn't speak to what it's like to raise twins. I have no idea what that must be like. But in this conversation about, grief, I think that's one of the pieces of it, is that there is there's something about grief that is very personal. There is no right and wrong, and it is very difficult to say, I know exactly what you're feeling, and so I know exactly what you're going through. It's almost impossible.
Yeah, everybody goes through the stages of grief differently and in different timelines too. From my own personal experience of processing some loss in my life, it's been different. So I have lost my dad. I've had to say goodbye to many friends, some that were closer to me than others. And each person that I had processed the grief around, it was always a different experience, different waves, right? It's like sometimes it was like more tumultuous, and sometimes there was more grace, acceptance. For example, my dad, when he passed away, it was it was hard, but I, for some reason, was able to get to that fifth stage of the grieving, of acceptance, much faster than I had ever imagined I would. I thought that maybe when he would die, I would be in the depth of depression for some time, but I was able to get to a place of acceptance much faster with him, versus saying goodbye to someone else, which many of you guys might remember, Pumpkin. Nick, he was a dear friend, and when he passed, I went through really, really painful waves of deep sadness and depression for quite some time, and he's not my parent. I was much closer with my dad, but for some reason the processing was different, and so I think each person goes through these different losses at different paces and timing and layers, and it's very personal. Very personal. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, but I'll share, the main thing that I got out of, going through the loss of my dad was recognizing the importance of grief and seeing how valuable it was, because if I would have bypassed it or shut it down, then I would have, stored it in my body. But it became very clear to me the importance of going through the waves of feelings.
Mm-hmm. No. I wonder how different it is, and maybe with your experience. I'm not sure what the circumstances were around your father passing, but my experience with it is, if when it is somewhat expected, or you kind of know it's coming, there's an ability or an opportunity there to kind of process that in a different way. Almost like, maybe not, you're not quite planning ahead, but you're able, it doesn't necessarily come up and like just punch you in the stomach,
Mm,
as opposed to, losing somebody suddenly, like in an accident or just, heart attack or whatever. There's a whole different level of gut punch with that,
absolutely.
and that can definitely hinder your process, or
Totally.
affect you a little much deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, the shock factor
Yeah.
is a whole nother layer. Yeah, I had a very unique experience of when my dad passed, because we did know that he was sick for some time. And so there was sort of this anticipation and knowing that he was going to be passing at some point, but it was years. It was actually quite a long time of like knowing that he was going to be going. It was like, okay, any day now, but then he would carry on for many more months. And then I actually was in a 10-day silent meditation retreat. It was the first time I'd ever done a Vipassana, which really focuses on um, impermanence. The focus really helps you to get to a place of equanimity. And it's a practice of really going into your own self-awareness to see that everything is impermanent. And so I was meditating on impermanence for 10 straight days in silence. And then about 2 weeks later is when he passed. And so I had really been cultivating that deep connection to this um, impermanence. And so it was like, oh, wow, here is the ultimate impermanence. And so I feel like that was one of the biggest blessings that I could have ever done for myself to prepare for his loss, because it brought me to that place of presence and acceptance and witnessing and allowing, and it helped me just to stay open and stay connected to his spirit and let go of the longing and the clinging and the aversion and the suffering that brings. And so I'm really grateful that it was the timing aligned for his passing for me to have had that practice.
Mm,
Hmm.
that's beautiful. The mention of the everything is transitory, and I'm, as always, brought back to Burning Man. And I feel like my whole awareness of grief and death was changed by the experiences I've had at the Burning Man Temple. And if you're not familiar, it's a structure that is a beautifully built structure made out of raw wood. And then as the event opens, people start to cover the wood with messages to people they've lost, and pictures and photos and tributes. And the messages are so personal and so sincere and so emotional. And I mean, you can just start reading them and just, it's hard not to be overwhelmed with emotion. And my initial experience was like, this is so difficult. It's so painful. It's so painful. And then I had this just like wave of like, every expression that I'm witnessing here is the echo of how profound their love was. Every expression of grief is a demonstration of the love that was felt. It's the same, it's the oscillation. And so so to kind of letting go a little bit of my attachment of grief being bad, and started to feel like intensity. And if I could experience the intensity of this humanness, the intensity of this human connection through the grief and through the love, it just gave me this like overwhelming, like beauty, poetry of the human experience of it. Not joyful in the yay, yay, yay sense, but in a kind of like, wow, this is so alive. This is so fucking beautiful. And it's something that I've tried to embrace with elements of loss myself, of like, wow, this depth that I am feeling is only so dark and far down because of how much this person touched me. And that's one of my tools for dealing with grief.
Hmm. That's so beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. Then isn't that kind of the purpose of it as well? Just to kind of remind us like what how valuable like so many elements of our life are, and I certainly don't want this conversation to just be us reciting a list of platitudes for how about life and grief and things like that. But that loss and those feelings of loss and those moments and experiences of loss, what are they if they're if not like reminders of like of the value of our connection, the value of our relationships, and to really savor those moments. I've definitely found myself in places of whether any among any aspect of life where I'm having just a blast, or I'm just really in my joy. And there's been often a moment in that reminder in that moment to savor this. There's like a voice in my head that says, love this, feel it, dive into it, and really embody this moment. These moments are fleeting. These moments are they're super juicy. Love it up, because this too shall pass, and we will find ourselves in those depths sooner than later, because that's what life is about. And I think that's what allows us to really savor and cherish those moments of joy and pleasure, and just in merely existence itself, because we're here for the full spectrum experience. We are all our lives are set up for loss. They're also set up for pleasure, and so like we're all on this journey, and none of us are getting out of here alive, and nor are the people ahead of us, or that around us. And the idea, like having a conversation about somebody who lost a parent recently, and they were really struggling with it, understandably. And also, we were kind of talking, and she came to the realizations like, well, this is actually the best case scenario outcome, is that my parent lives to be a long life, and I get to witness that and experience that. Much worse, or just another other aspect of grief, for a parent to lose a child. That's not supposed to happen, supposedly. But there's a lot of like we frame a lot of things as what's supposed to happen. That's not how it works. And it's easy to it's good to be able to be like, wow, so if I'm lucky, I will outlive my children, or I will I will outlive my pet, or what have you. But it speaks to the idea of things being temporary. And that's certainly a lesson I first got from Burning Man, and was really driven home like via my experiences with ayahuasca, about how death is an absolutely vital and large part of life and existence. And this is all temporary. All of our possessions and relationships and loves in our life, they are all leaving us at some point. This is all temporary. And so realizing and really taking that in, and via ceremony, allowed me to come out after I felt like my journey with that medicine was complete, to be like, well, okay, so this is. And so when I would experience things that are like ending, like an ending of a relationship, or somebody close to me dying, I'm able to kind of process this in a way like similar to Betsy with your father, and be like, okay, so this is happening. This is how this is always happening. This is how this is happening. And having a level of acceptance that I was a stranger to, that medicine really helped me to realize, like, no, this is always, transitioning. This is how it is, and learning to be okay with that.
So beautiful. Yeah, the plant medicine can really give that opportunity to peel back the veil, right, and see things more clearly. I feel sparked in something around what you shared around the temple at Burning Man, and how it's the sacred place for people to put pictures of their loved ones and write messages and share in such a deep way and allow them to be seen. And something you didn't mention, for those who haven't been to Burning Man, is at the end of the event, it's burned. it's, given back to nature. It is this really powerful ceremony. And one of the things I've always found so much value in that is because there isn't really much like that in our default world, right? In our regular life here in America, I'm sure there's a lot of rituals around the world, but here in America, there isn't a whole lot of that. Funerals are very different. There isn't always, these opportunities to do something like that, to ceremonialize our grieving process, and to do that in a collective community way is one of the most powerful experiences I feel like I've ever seen when it comes to honoring lives of those who have lost. Um, so if you ever get a chance to go to Burning Man, or for those of you that have, the temple is really one of the most beautiful ways to be able to come into the love and the acceptance of transition, and to be able to come back to that place of like, wow, these bodies are so precious. I know for me, it's like whenever death comes around, it just always brings me back home to, wow, this body, it's precious. Life is so precious, to keep coming back to that remembering of like each hug that I give to a friend is like, this may be the last. And so to cherish it even more, right? To cherish these precious, precious moments even more because of witnessing the loss and the transitions of our loved ones. Mhm.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
the other thing that you mentioned about the temple, that I think we do not have the spaces in modern society to truly grieve. We have funerals, but there really is a protocol to the ones that I've experienced. You dress up nice. You sniffle into a handkerchief. There's some cultures and some communities where wailing, is appropriate. And truly letting go is an acceptable response. But I had never experienced that until I was at the temple, and was able to feel comfortable dropping to my knees and just snot pouring out of me onto the ground and just truly releasing. And I had an interesting experience where someone would like come up to me and say, you know, are you okay? I'm like, I'm incredible. Like this is exactly what I need to feel right now. It's just, it's just big feeling. I'm not even sure what's happening. It's just like, I'm just letting all this stuff out, which is hard to do in the structures that we have in the default world.
Yes, absolutely. Moving it through the body, emoting, expressing, sounding, feeling. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Halcyon, on that. It's like, how do we find a safe space to allow the emotions to be fully expressed, right? I know for me, the beach and nature has always been a refuge for me to sometimes scream or cry or just go into the depth of feeling, right? And, right now in this conversation and the grief and loss, we're talking a lot about death, but grief and loss comes in so many forms, right? Relationships end, jobs end, we lose a pet, we lose our house, different things happen in life that we go through this like deep grieving. We lose our identity, right? We go through these really deep processes, in so many different ways. And so, yeah, finding different ways to be able to move that energy and allow it to be expressed. I know another way that I do that is turning the music up really loud in my car. Music is so healing. My mom actually taught me this at a young age. She was like, if you're feeling some things, turn on some music that will help to evoke the emotions even more, right? Because I'm sure there's been times where maybe you guys have felt this. I felt this before, where it's like, I know there's some feeling in there, but I don't, I don't know how to access it. I want to feel the sadness. I want to feel the grief. There's something in there that needs to move, but I just can't. Music. It's like, find those songs that evoke it. There's this like, incredible gift that music gives us to be able to feel. And so those are a couple of the ways that I help to get things to move, because otherwise they just get stored up, right? And then it turns into tension in the body, and it turns into dis-ease in the body.
Yeah. Yeah. So whatever whatever your process is for that. And it's unfortunate that we don't see what you guys are speaking of, that we don't necessarily have those community moments to like share that with. We can always call our friends in to be like, hey, so let's circle up for Halcyon today, or what have you, which I understand isn't everybody's jam, but there's something to be said for like that community process, even if it's just a small group of people. But our society isn't necessarily geared for that. So doing this on our own, we've spoken about this before in previous episodes, but like, yeah, getting the body moving allows those energies and those emotions to kind of flow. Time out in nature has been a big thing for me as well. Really like going deep in the woods, desert, the beach, anything out in nature where you're kind of away from everything, away from things, definitely helps to process that. And that's one thing that is universal about grief, is that, or how to process that, or how to handle that, is that it's not something that we get over. It's something that we learn to carry. It's something that we grow to carry with us. And there's many ways to go about that, but two of the things that are necessary for that are time and patience with ourselves. This process that cannot be rushed. So we've got to really be in it. And that's like your mom is saying, Betsy, to what you want to evoke those feelings. That helps with the process and allows us to grow and expand and to become a version of ourselves that can carry this with us for the rest of our days, because it's not something that you learn to get over with. It's just like you become larger. You're able to carry this thing, so it doesn't feel like this big weight. You grow, you expand, so it becomes yet another coin that you're able to carry with you, moving forward into life. And becomes one of those experiences that just makes us larger, more lovable people.
More resilient as
More
well,
resilient.
stronger. Yeah, I feel like see losing somebody very close to you as like a rite of passage,
Mhm.
right? It's stepping into this whole other way of being able to carry yourself when you really go into that experience. And that's what you're speaking to. It's like it doesn't go away. You just become this new person because you've gotten to experience something so deep.
Yeah, I was talking with a friend of mine. He's undergoing his first real breakup in a relationship at the age of like 36, um, or like mid late 30s, and that's something that a lot of us experience pretty pretty early on in life. So by the time we get to be in our 30s, we've been broken up with a few times. We've broken up with somebody a couple times, and so that's definitely a part of life. And so he was really like, oh, what is this, what is happening? I'm like, yeah, you're a little late to the game, and that's good in some ways and not so good in other ways, because what you're feeling now is something that a lot of people have felt multiple times by this point. So but there's no timeline for stuff like this.
I
So
gotta tell you,
patient.
I as someone who has recently had their heart broken, and for the first time getting my heart broken like this, it is debilitating, and I find myself having so much understanding and compassion for all the rom-coms I've seen of all the behavior from these silly people. Like, why don't they just move on? Why can't they just? Oh, I get it now. I'm dealing with the kind of loss and grief that people write songs about, and that changes who you are.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know what? It's just like the other side of the heart, right? Two sides of the heart is like love and sadness. Sorrow opens the heart in a much different way, right? It's like going deeper inward, right? It's like squeezes the heart in this way, right? When you're also like loving so deeply, it's the same space in our hearts. hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much music coming back to that, is like there's so much love songs, but also heartbreak songs.
And
It's
I
a
think,
part of our journey.
and the I guess the spark I keep coming back to is that, to what you just said, that it's the same space, and if you can kind of pull back and let go of the assigning a good or a bad to it and instead feel into the intensity of the experience, then there's something soothing about knowing that you are leading and living an epic life, that you are truly, having a human experience, and that there's both of it, and so that helps to fight the desire to protect yourself from the pain in the future. If you protect yourself from being hurt or that pain, grief, loss feeling, then you miss out on the joy and the love and the magic. So it's the my leaving spark will be that, trying to find an appreciation for the intensity of our experiences is the best way that I'm able to make sense of the pain of grief.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And my experience with that, and a spark that I've gained over the course of my life when it comes to dealing with grief and dealing with loss, is that, yeah, the heartaches that I've had, particularly in a relationship, have gotten deeper as I've gotten older, and that's because that level of depth that I'm able to feel for somebody has also deepened, as I've gone through, various loving relationships. That depth of that you feel upon loss, or that I feel upon loss, is directly proportionate to the amount of depth of joy and love that I'm able to feel. So it's, yeah, so it's not to be, for me, it's an interesting thing that I'm able to, so that level of heartbreak, is that potential does kind of increase just because your capacity to love has increased. That's a good thing. So and it's experiencing these things is the gamut of human experiences. Yeah, that's a life. And there's been moments where I've been really, despairing, over loss of death, or over loss of relationship, and really in it. And there's still a part of me that's like, wow, I'm living my life. I'm living my life. Feels like what I'm supposed to be doing. Feels like what I'm here for is for these experiences. And it's all part of a tapestry that is becoming more beautiful with age, by years. So that's something that helps me to kind of, deal and process that, to be like, okay, yeah, this is what I signed up for. This is what I'm here for. And I'm surrounded by a bunch of like lovely friends who are kind of doing the same, and creating their own epic journeys, and sharing notes, and growing together in community. So that's what that's what kind of gets me through.
Amazing. I think I'll just bring it right back around full circle to where we started, is, the 5 stages of grief that you brought forward, Janus, to recognize that these are processes that are different for everyone, right? We move through them in different pacing, and, different losses bring different processes. And so I really feel so inspired by that. It brings a sense of hope, and also kind of a comprehension around what the emotions that we're moving through, right? Because sometimes if we're so deeply emotional, it's hard to comprehend and make sense of things, right? Because it's just so swept up in the clouds of emotion. And so to anchor into these 5 stages, to learn and to grow, is such a valuable thing. And then also recognizing that the time that we live in, there's so much support, so much information, so much resources. I'm invited to grief circles regularly. I see people putting on these beautiful gatherings to honor grief. There is support groups, there are books, there are podcasts all about grief. There's so many talks about grief and loss. There is just so much available for people to be able to move through the very challenging part of life, which is loss and grieving. And so I'll just, close it out with that spark, knowing that we're not alone, and we don't have to do it alone when we are going through challenging times. And then also, I think I'll just toss this in there too, is the the episode that we had a while back called Holding Space for Friends. I think that there's some things in there too around how do we show up for the people in our lives that are grieving, right? This conversation has been very much about our own personal journey of grieving, but how do we get to be there for each other? You know, checking in with one another and listening to each other and just offering a hug and, you know, being there is such a powerful thing. Um, so if you guys haven't listened to that one yet, it's a really good one. And I love being in this conversation with you guys. I'm just so grateful and so grateful for all of you out there who have been listening and who have been sending in your messages of appreciation and for the spark that also inspired this conversation. Once again, Thomas, thank you so much for instigating this grief conversation. We're always welcome to receive more messages from you guys. It just keeps our sparks going, and we love sparking you guys out there.
Indeed. Indeed. So cool. Halcyon, any final thoughts? You're feeling anything to add, or
I will just start us off with how to find us in the world. That my gratitude circles, my t-shirts, and my other podcasts are all available at johnstin.com, and I appreciate all sorts of connection. If you're ever in a grieving state, I really recommend popping into a gratitude circle. It is a place for grief as well. It's a beautiful place to sometimes you can be grateful that you have a place to express your grief. It's that's part of it too.
Yeah, and I'm just going to fan the flames of that beautiful offering that you offer to the world as a free circle, virtual circle. For 3 years, you just had your 3-year anniversary of these beautiful, beautiful groups. So thank you so much, Halcyon, for providing that for your community and creating a sacred place for people to just share their gratitudes and pump that muscle. And, you know, whatever they're going through, to be able to find their way back into gratitude. So amazing,
Thank you.
Halcyon. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Halcyon, for sure, for sure. I am out there in the world with my company, NuWorld Nutritionals, which is again a nutritional supplement company, and our products are geared for kind of improving one's state of mind, improving one's mood, helping with focus and learning, things like that. We have a microdose product that is getting really good results with people of all sorts of populations, and yeah, it's definitely been a product that has gotten me through some challenging times, and a lot of other people have had some good results with that as well, I'm happy to say. So you can find us online at nuworldnutritionals.com. That's spelled nuworldnutritionals.com, and you can use the code SPARKED for 10% off of any of our products.
Amazing. Love that. And you guys can find me in the world offering the Power Affirmation Journal and virtual group, which really is a tool for helping to reprogram limiting beliefs. We do all kinds of different things with journaling and meditation, breath work, embodiment practices, gratitude practices to really help to cultivate life skills for sustainable happiness and creating habits of the mind, body, and spirit. And I also work with people one-on-one virtually, doing some Dharma coaching, incorporating all of those practices, and also in person here in Solana Beach, California, doing body work and energy work, sound healing. And I just also love being a friend. So thank you guys out there for following my journey. Poweraffirmation.com is where you can find more about that project. And then also my last name, FINKLEHOO.com, which you can learn more about the other modalities that I offer. And in the show notes, I have shared a link to a free Power Affirmation audio download. So you guys can use that to stay inspired. And I think you guys can also use Sparked as a 10% discount code on my website. So thank you guys for listening.
Yay.
And shall I close us out with an affirmation?
Please, please, please.
Please do.
All right. So in the spirit of this conversation, an affirmation to honor where we are, honor our feelings, and to really come back to that beautiful place of acceptance. So closing the eyes if that feels comfortable for you, and taking a deep breath. If you like, you can place your hands on your body. And the affirmation is, I allow myself to feel all the feels, and I trust that this too shall pass. I allow myself to feel all the feels, and I trust that this too shall pass. I allow myself to feel all the feels, and I trust that this too shall pass. I allow myself to feel all the feels, and I trust that this too shall pass. I'm exactly where I need to be. Everything is okay. I'm okay. Life is good. Life is a blessing. Life is precious. Thank you, 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 thank you. Thanks, guys. Stay sparked.
Stay sparked, friends.